So that was Joe Biden. He went on to say we cannot turn away from racism, and he talked about systemic abuse as he sees it as a national problem. Shelby Steele is a senior fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. He's the author of Shame: How America's Past Sins Have Polarized Our Country, and he's finishing a documentary titled What Killed Michael Brown. He has been writing and talking about race in America for decades. He has said that Black America has been twice betrayed, first by slavery, and then, he writes, by white guilt efforts to appease it. One of the manifestations of that may be the latest push to now defund police departments across this country. Dr. Steele joins me now. Dr. Steele, thank you very much. It's great to have you with us this evening. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So when you listen to those comments today, both by Al Sharpton and also by the former Vice President Joe Biden at George Floyd's service in Houston today, what goes through your mind?
Well, that we live in, for lack of a better term, a white guilt world. What is Mr. Biden doing? Does he really deeply care about Black America and the problems that we have there? Or is he using our pain as a kind of advertisement of his own moral vanity? And he hopes that he's looking for the moral vanity that he thinks will translate into votes and get him elected and so forth. Does he know anything at all, really, about the difficulties that Black Americans face now? Many of which have nothing in the world to do with racism. Well, it's that sort of white guilt exploitation of black pain. It's not dissimilar to what segregation did. It also exploited blacks in a much more obvious way. But in either case, we end up as blacks dependent on what people like Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, American liberalism, what those things do. We, in a sense, are dependent on them, and we are trained and encouraged to see our opportunity through them. We have to pressure them and get them to make our lives better. It's not something we do ourselves.
So what would be the message that you would want to hear from Al Sharpton, for example, and from Joe Biden? What would be a better message in your mind?
I would want to hear something positive. Black Americans, we come from a great people. After all, we endured 4 centuries of the worst oppression known to mankind. We're a great people. What happened in Minneapolis is an obvious tragedy. But it's not something that is going to interrupt our greatness, and that it is all the more message, it tells us all the more clearly that we have to be the engineers of our fate. We have to be the agents of our fate and in America. And we've earned over the centuries, we've earned the respect of other Americans, and we need to go with that, to like ourselves, to respect ourselves, and stop continually trying to solicit the Joe Bidens of the world in that sort of corrupt symbiosis with white guilt, thinking that that's our way ahead. It's not our way ahead. We are our own best resource, and we've got to focus more on that.
You say there's never been a better time for opportunity for African Americans in the United States?
Yes, absolutely. This is. I grew up in segregation in the 50s and the 60s in Chicago. I know what segregation is like. I know what racism is like. I know it intimately. It's over with. It happens. It pops up here and there. Racism is an impulse in the human condition. It'll always be there to some degree. But what is different between when I was a young person and today is that there are opportunities absolutely everywhere. Everybody from around the world wants to get here and take advantage of our opportunities. We have got to get past this sort of dwelling in our history of victimization, and we've got to move into freedom and seize it. Make something out of it. It's right there in front of us. It breaks my heart to see young people, Black Lives Matter, angry and still going over this victimization as though that's the truth of who we are as a people, is that we've been victims. What a sad thing to think. What a sad way to think of yourself. And this has gone on to the point where it's just painful to see. I want to see young people embracing freedom. What are your contribution to your race is what you make of yourself. It is not what your identity gives to you. It's what you give to your identity. And we've gotten things that last a few days here, a few weeks, kind of blur that truth, but it doesn't obliterate it.
You talk about the government, you talk about expanding the territory of entitlement. And I saw today that the Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear, came out and said this. Watch his comment today, if you would, Shelby.
The results of inequality in health care have been shown. It's death. My commitment today is we are going to begin an effort to cover 100% of our individuals in our Black and African American communities.
What do you make of that? What's your reaction to that from that governor?
White guilt, white guilt operates by the arm of white guilt is always deference, where where whites win their innocence and their power by deferring to some difficulty that minorities have. Well, we've had 60 years of deference. The Great Society programs, war on poverty, affirmative action, school busing, public housing, all that we've had all of that. We're farther behind now than we were back then, back in the 50s and the early 60s. Because it's not about us. It's about this governor winning power for himself, appeasing what he thinks his voters want to hear. We're a tool that he uses in that sense.
One of the things that I know you would like to see more focus on, based on what I've read of your writing, is the element of fathers missing from so many African American families. There are numbers as high as 70% children growing up without father figures in their home. Is that something that is missing from the dialogue here that you'd like to hear more of? You say the government is not going to read your child a book at night.
That's right. That's absolutely right. We're sitting here talking about what's going on in Minneapolis, and as horrible as that is, and I have nothing against that. True horror, and we're right to take note of it. But excuse me, it's not the central problem that Black America has. Our central problem is a breakdown of the family. 75% of all Black children are born out of wedlock. They don't have a father. There are very few men around in the community. When I was growing up, men were everywhere. Everybody had a dad.
Yeah.
A good one or a bad one, but they had one. Right. They perform a great service to the community. They're irreplaceable. There's no social program, government intervention that's going to take the place of that. We as Black people need to put more focus and use our imagination to reinforce the institution of marriage and family. That right there. Think of how the kind of improvement that would make. And I'd much rather see us talk about that than again about the police.
Dr. Shelby Steele, thank you, sir. Great to have you on tonight. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.